Looks like we gave half the congregation the day off or something. I'm not sure where everyone, some are still making their way in. And this morning is a neat opportunity for us. We will have a guest speaker this morning. His name is Ari Hurwitz, and he represents an organization that is working directly with families that have been refugeed. They are refugees from Afghanistan since the withdrawal last fall. And there are many families who are in need, and a lot of communities are just not able, not doing a great job of taking care of some of that, but this community is. And Ari represents that organization that is directly taking care of each family, every family member, education, transportation, just the basic needs of where to live and food and how to communicate and how to navigate our community. They were ahead of the curve, so much so that even other communities are asking them how they can improve what they are doing for their families. And I met with Ari about a month ago. We had a conversation, very impressed with the work that he is doing. He's working with Mrs. Brahmi, Bibi Brahmi, who really was the spearhead, I would say, of all of this, but has connections and has utilized those connections to make this a very powerful opportunity for us to help and to be a part of, not only as a church, but individually. They have several levels of engagement and several levels of volunteer activity and ways that you can support them. And so you're invited to do that. And I know for some of you, I've talked to you about this at that time, and we've talked about that and have given you a card. Today will be that direct invitation to be a part of that as well. So Ari will come up here in a few minutes after our worship songs and share with us. And I'm thankful that he's able and willing to come and do that. And so I know that you will be impressed as well with the work that they are doing. And for them, it's never done. There's always new challenges, always new needs. And so they partner with as many as are willing to make that happen for these families. And it's kind of very encouraging. And I think I've told you this, that he knows all of those families. They have direct contact. This is not just infusing them somehow and turning them loose into our community, which I know some have had concerns about. This is done very well. And they are very sweet, genuine people. And to know someone who can give a testimony to that, share that with us, and invite us then to be a part of that process, I really am encouraged by that. So we will hear from him in a few moments. You'll also notice this week on Thursday that we have a congregational business meeting at 7. In lieu of that then, the Bible study will not meet this week, obviously, and we will continue with that schedule next week, but men's prayer will be on Thursday morning. And I believe, I can't think of any other announcements that need to be mentioned. Penny. Online. Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. Anything else, Matt? All right, installing the new basketball goal and making it a little safer for ankles and feet and knees and every other body part, because the parking blocks won't be underneath the goal, and so it's going to be down at that end of the parking lot, and so help will be needed. So be ready. You kind of got to watch the weather. And okay. Anything else this morning? Well, let's worship together as Marjorie plays the prelude. We are reminded this is God's invitation to worship, to trust Him, to take Him at His word. We saw that in our Bible study Wednesday night, that Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. He took God at His word. He didn't have all of none of the law, the instructions, none of those things were before him. It was God's invitation to say, Abraham, will you believe me? And Paul tells us that when he believed God, it was indeed then God crediting to him as righteousness through Christ, and that was Paul's point. So we too, as we worship, we're taking God at his word, trusting him for all that he is to us and for us in the person of Jesus. Let's worship together. And Father, we indeed pray that that would be our heart and minds this morning, that we would indeed come together and lift high the name of Jesus forever, King of kings, Lord of lords, and that we would worship together, exalting him together. Father, as you equip us for these moments, may we be attentive to your Spirit as you lead and as you guide. May we know that the truth you bring will be that which does indeed change us and work within us and then work through us. So, Father, lead us in these moments. And we give you all the praise, all the glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Trey, come and lead us. Let's worship together. If you would like to stand with us, feel free. You're welcome to, and Evan's coming to help. I don't know if Trey could do it by himself anymore. Nope.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship his holy name, sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship your holy name. The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship his holy name, sing like never before, oh my soul, rich in love, and you're slow to anger. Your name is great, and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore, forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I worship your holy name. Yes, I worship your holy name. Yes, I worship your holy name. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. I will serve you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and all my strength. I will serve you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and all my strength. With all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, with all my strength. I will serve you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and all my strength. With all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, with all my strength. With all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, yeah, with all my strength. I will love you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and all my strength. And I will love you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and all my strength. And I will love you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and all my strength. Amen. You can be seated on the last song. Perfect in all your ways, mighty, strong to save. We find hope in you alone. Matchless and powerful, holy, wonderful. We find hope in you alone. You give life to the broken. We put our hope in He who can be shaken, and you give peace in our madness. We hold to your promise. You are God unshaken. Faithful to make a way, Father, in this grace we find hope in you alone. We fall, but you remain constant and everything. We find hope in you alone. You give life to the broken. We put our hope in He who can be shaken, and you give peace in our madness. We hold to your promise. You are God unshaken. This heart believes that you will never leave us. These eyes will see the glory of the Lord. This heart believes that you will never leave us. These eyes will see the glory of the Lord. This heart believes that you will never leave us. His eyes will see the glory of the Lord. To give life to the broken, we put our hope in He who can be shaken, and you give peace in our madness. We hold to your promise. You are God unshaken.
As I talked earlier about Ari and the work that they are doing, it is with the organization. It's the Muncie Afghan Refugee Resettlement Committee, and I am as I met with Ari, just as I said, just overwhelmed with how much they are doing. And while we know that there was chaos around the withdrawal and the things happening in Afghan and the Taliban taking control and those that they would be after and those, there were many lives in danger. These families that are leaving Afghanistan are not looking for an excuse. They didn't want to leave their home. They were forced to leave their homes. And many times it was one set of family members leaving the others behind. And Ari, I don't know if I'm stealing thunder, but one young man that he told me about, he had just met with him and knew that he was looking somber and asked what was wrong. He just found out his father had been killed and that he was now here, unable to do anything else except to grieve. And we don't think about all of these things, but just imagine being uprooted, unsettled, not knowing where you're going, not knowing where you will end up, not knowing who you will meet and how they will be treated. And in a lot of places, these are questions still unanswered. And I'm thankful to say that's not true here in Muncie. They are ready, and they want to be even more ready. And they're ready as they can be with the resources they have. And so the reason that I've asked Ari to come is, I want us individually and we can corporately look at ways that we can be a part of that process. And like James said, when he talked about true religion at the end of chapter 1, he talked about those who take care of orphans and widows. Those were the displaced in their society. They had nothing. They had no identity. They had no one to attach to. And so they were left to themselves in what really was a cruel society where they had no claim to anything. So when we think about those in our culture that might fit into those categories, this is certainly one of them, and I believe a very strong case can be made for that. So Ari, as you come and share with us, let's be attentive to all that is shared, of course, but being aware of the ways that God may lead you to be a part of this process. Thank you for sharing with us, Ari. Lord bless you. Good. Okay. He said he has 180 more stories he can tell, so I didn't do it.
Jim wasn't kidding when he said, he really knows the families. We have 112 Afghan new neighbors here in Muncie and Delaware County now, and so you can steal my thunder and I can tell you 100,000 more stories. So I want to start by piggybacking on something that Pastor Jim just said. I'm not a natural public speaker. I usually operate with groups of 1 or 4 and get engaged and get deep and tell stories. So the larger the crowd, the harder it is. But you mentioned, in the book of James and other places in the Bible, one of the things I was very nervous about early on, not being a public speaker, is just that, everything in our world right now feels politicized and feels, like it's another excuse for people to get at each other or to define each other differently. And I was talking to a few friends of mine, actually 2 who happen to be pastors. One of them said, Ari, you don't have to worry because you're going forth to talk about refugees coming to a new country. And that's one place where, there's no argument. The Bible, I think he told me there was 27 places, and I took his word for it because he's a pastor. And he said there's 27 places that mention, the stranger, the refugee, the immigrant. And he said, you can probably find something to fit your view on every issue, but he said this is the one that's as clear as day about giving and making them feel welcome and making them feel like they belong in your home. And I said, okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm still nervous about public speaking. But first of all, thank you so much. Pastor Jim was right. It's been heartwarming and a really great thing for our city and our county that we have gotten so much positive energy from this. Unfortunately, as we all know, because we live here, sometimes Muncie and our county get a black eye. We're not led well by political leaders or whatever it is. And this is one time where the unification, people coming together and showing what we can do as a community has been tremendous. And we have gotten as far as Fort Wayne, a group from Indianapolis that said, can you please train us? A group from Fort Wayne that said we have 115 plus people here and they're suffering, and we see what's happening in Muncie and people coming together and jobs and schools and how do you do this? This is amazing. So it's been huge for our city as well. But I'll kind of rewind for a minute, and I'll try to keep it mostly focused on, the reason we're here, the people who are here. So we Muncie Afghan Refugee Resettlement Committee, or MARC for short, sprung out of Awaken, Inc. Some of you may know Bibi Bahrami, or may have Dr. Bahrami as your doctor, may know of Awaken. That was founded here in Muncie, not too far from here, actually, 20 years ago, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit that focuses on women and girls in the most underserved parts of rural Afghanistan, providing healthcare, education, job skills, and this kind of thing, and they've been very successful in that. The work they've done in Afghanistan has affected, quite literally, and still does, even under Taliban control, thousands. I asked Bibi not too long ago, I said, can Awaken still do their stuff? She's like, the Taliban is brutal and cruel and in some ways very stupid, but I think they're also aware that when you are teetering on the brink and we provide the only healthcare in a 100-mile radius, maybe leave that alone. So I said, okay, that's good, So anyway, fast forward to August of this year, August 15th, when the government fell. I mean, we all watched the news, we all know what happened. It was kind of unbelievable how quickly the Taliban came in and took over, and the American military doing maybe the most, I said, when you want to look at the American military and say, what can we do to be able to be in those dire kind of situations that were presented to them, and airlift over weeks of under constant threat, 75,000 Afghans and 40+ thousand Americans out, harrowing and amazing. And so Awaken really said, well, how can we be a part of this locally? We always work in Afghanistan, but what can we do here? There's a call, and it was ramped up very quickly. Within a month, Bibi, as you said, has a lot of connections with great people, and so we got together 15 different subcommittees because you mentioned getting ahead of the game, and that was key. We said we don't want this to be just sort of a few people saying, okay, we'll have one family. We want to say, what can we do on every level to really support people in a way that if this was us, we would want to be supported in another country after everything's been taken away. So ramping up subcommittees, having an education committee, an employment committee, a wellness committee, finance committee, just really across the board, housing, essentials, furnishings. So we could say, if we're bringing people to Muncie, let's make this real. We want them to stay. We want them to establish roots. We want them to give back to the community. We want them to thrive and be independent. And so it's been very successful, but it's only been successful because we have hundreds of volunteers, and it's a community effort. So as I mentioned, we have 112 currently Afghan new neighbors here in 33 families. Mostly, I have this up here because if I don't have notes, I'll be like, oh no, what time is it? And this and that, and then someone calls me. Almost to an individual, young families. I think the oldest person we have here is 49 years old. No, that's not true. We have one person older, but out of our 112, half of them are children. We currently have over 45 students in Muncie Community Schools. We have another 15 or so kids who are preschool age. And so, and I encourage later on, I know there will be time for questions. I always tell people, any question you have is a good question. I didn't know what I know at the beginning. None of us did. So if you feel a little uncomfortable, well, this might not come off the right way, it's okay. What I knew of refugees coming in has been blown out of the water. To see, all these small children, all these families has been tremendous, and to hear their stories. I can tell you 33 different family stories, and they all are the same. And I encourage all of you, you've been successful in life to some extent. You built businesses, or you've been doctors, or you've been scientists, or whatever, you've been teachers, to imagine if quite literally tomorrow you looked out your window and everything looked different and you knew you had to leave. And you knew it wasn't like, oh, well, hold on, let me get on UnitedAirlines.com and book a flight. You knew that it meant that I need to leave my house with my kids and my family, and I need to get someplace miles away. I don't know what's going to happen on the way there, and I know it's going to be very dangerous. And it's going to be that way because I supported the U.S. government, which at the time, and they still believe very much so, and I agree with them, was the right decision. There's almost a clear-eyedness when you talk to these folks about what they went through, and they said, it was a new Afghanistan. We went through 40 years from the Soviet invasion of just destruction and chaos and civil war and this and that. And the Americans came in, and we had, almost 20 years where people went to work and it was normal and women got educated and these things, and then it was in a day. And I said, in a day? I mean, you didn't watch the news? They said, we keep hearing this from Americans, Didn't you watch the news? Didn't you know the chaos? Didn't you know the Taliban was approaching you? It wasn't like that when you were sitting there. You guys knew, the Taliban's coming, they're 8 kilometers out, whatever. He said, one guy, he's a great example, and this is someone who speaks fluent English, has an MBA, worked in the presidential palace for the Afghan government, liaising with the US military and State Department and for economic development. And he said, quite literally, I went to work, I can't remember what day of the week it was, but whatever August 15th, it was 4 days before that. He said, I went to work, and there were a couple people for the first time said, I think the Taliban's like approaching Kabul. We don't know. He said, I went to work the next day, it was totally normal. And I went to work the next day, this was on the 14th, and all of a sudden our supervisors weren't there. So it's like me and this whole 30 other people in our economic office going like, well, what do we do today? No one's here. And then by the end of the day, we got word like, don't come to work tomorrow, go home now. It's going to be very dangerous, don't leave your house, this is happening. And he said, quite literally, we woke up the next morning and the Taliban's outside. Literally on the streets with guns. And he said, this is like a different world. We didn't know the night before that we were going to wake up to this. And so there's not a textbook. He said, we just knew. We've been told, like they have lists, they know, they're coming for people who supported the United States government. And he said, the first day, I just told my family, don't leave the house. My wife was ill. They have 2 little girls who, one just had her 3rd birthday, the other's 5. And he said, I didn't know what was going to go on. So he goes, I went to the airport, I went to some other places, some friends of mine. And he's like, it was very dangerous. And he said, now, you know on the news, that chaotic airport scene where everything was just thousands of people crushing each other. And he said, I couldn't get near it. And he said, I tried a few days just to get out. And he said, on the 4th or 5th day, I can't remember, he said, my wife felt better. And we said, we got to get out. Like, we're going to do anything we can do today. And he said, but by the grace of God, if I had gotten out the day before, it would have been without my family. But I was able to get out that day. But he said, even getting to the airport, he said, imagine people who are desperate for their lives, because they know that if they stay, they will be hunted and killed, and their families will be as well by the Taliban. I've told people, I said, if you want to meet people who hate the Taliban more than Americans, talk to an Afghan. And these are people who lived it every day, family members murdered, houses ransacked, all of these things. And so he said, we get to the airport. And he said, there was still a little naivete, even in that. He said, we're each holding bags. We have one of our daughters by the hand and backpacks. And he said, there was this moment, and one of their daughters, Alina, she just turned 3, so she was just turned 2 at the time, or 2.5, and she said, she just got stepped on, like her calf, and went under the crowd. And he just said, imagine, 3 or 4 minutes only, but imagine 3 or 4 minutes where your 2-year-old is gone in this throng of a crowd. And he said, we drop everything, and me and my wife are screaming and yelling, and he said, probably being more violent than we've ever been in our lives, just elbowing people out of the way to find. And he said, it probably was only 3 minutes, and someone literally lifted her over their head, found her on the ground. She was fine. She said she just had a scrape. And we just, dropped everything and grabbed the girls and went. And he said, and this is a guy with an MBA, had built a life. I mean, he tells me about his life. He's like, we had 3 cars, we had a driver on top of our 3 cars to get to work in the morning. We had a very nice house. We had money saved in the bank. I was the director of HR for an entire province. I was working in economic development in the palace. And he said, literally that day, it's all gone. Every bank account emptied, every dollar, we got out safely. Sadly, some stories don't end that way. We have probably 8, 9 families who couldn't get their wives and children out. One guy told me the story. He's from Coast, which is probably only about 100 miles out of Kabul, but it's over mountains, and so it takes probably 5 or 6 hours by car. And he worked directly for the U.S. military and base security. And he said, literally, it was one day, you wake up, you get a call, and they each had they call it COM, Chief of Mission, the American military person who is kind of in charge of their area. And he said, we get a call that, we're going to send a transport of some sort. Load your family in, take everybody, we can get you out, you got to leave now. And in his situation, he said, my wife was over 8 months pregnant, we had 6 kids. I just wasn't making that decision. I couldn't put my wife and my kids in a vehicle over the mountains. I didn't even know what was going on. And they had no idea. He's like, it's chaos. And so it's just, I'll get on, I'll go down, I'll see what's what. And we'll come back. And he said he had 4 hours. He said once they got there to Kabul, he said, well, the plane's leaving in 4 hours. Why didn't you bring your family? And he said, what do you mean 4 hours? I have to go get my family. I said, sorry, we told you to bring them. And so he's here in the United States. He's never met his baby. He hasn't seen his kids, his wife. And I know for me, I said, I can't imagine when you meet these people, you probably already have. They're in grocery stores, they go to banks, you probably know these folks already, but the resilience is amazing. I mean, I said, I have 3 kids, my wife. Actually, Trey knows them well. Trey works with my wife. So I would probably be going into Walmart, like physically accosting people, like yelling at them. Why aren't you calling the State Department? Get my kids out of Afghanistan, I mean, the ability to focus and to work and to go to school and to do these things when you know that's happening. And it's not like they're just, sitting in Muncie watching TV. They're in Afghanistan under threat. It is unbelievable. I could be here for 3 hours and tell you stories all day, but I say it just to say the range of people. I mean, we do have folks who come from nothing, we have one guy who unfortunately also had to leave his wife and his 5 kids, who was a minesweeper for the U.S. military, came from a very rural area, had nothing, and lost that nothing, But we have other folks who have MBAs, prominent lawyers, officials of various sorts who literally, much like you, built a successful career and had to walk away that day with absolutely nothing. And quite literally, the clothes on their back. We have one guy who said, I own 4 businesses there. I mean, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, we'll flee, but we'll get to America, we'll get our money, and we can start businesses in America. And then we get to America, and there's 0 there. Everything left. And so we really felt the call, all of us. I mean, we're a volunteer organization. I know myself, I've volunteered more than 1,500 hours since September. We have others who've done that less 1 hour. One hour a week we have volunteers. Everything matters so deeply. And what we've been able to see, the success story is absolutely Muncie and Delaware County coming together. Of our 33 families, 31 of the heads of households are already employed. IU Health, we have 5 people working at IU Health. We have 6 people working at a factory called Beckett Browns. We have 4 people working at a factory called Newell Brands. Folks working in landscaping, folks working in home cleaning. We have folks working at Muncie Community Schools. Some teenagers. If you go until it's into to the Payless, you'll meet some of our teenagers. Probably bringing groceries out to your car. So it's amazing how quickly. And I thought, I don't know. I have a bad week, and I think, well, Saturday I'm done. I'm just gonna relax. The first thing that every single one of these families, they come in, we have our first meetings with them, and they're like, when can I start working? When can my kids get into school? Education is huge, huge, especially for the girls, because these are families who very much have wanted their girls to get educated, and at various times throughout lives, whether wives or kids, it's not been available to them. So they've been really big on that. A lot of the wives still traditionally in Afghan culture are not working. But we did have 2 families who immediately, the guy was like, my wife has wanted to work for years. When can she work? When can she start going to Ball State? She got a high school education, but then she wasn't able to get any more. When can she get to Ball State and start going to school? She wants to be a nurse. One wants to be and go into business. And so it's been a lot of employment success. The Muncie Community School System has been tremendous. They even hired a full-time translator for some of the high school kids. The little kids, they pick up English. My wife and I have become close friends actually with 2 of the families. We were over one's house for dinner, and we said, your 6-year-old who's in kindergarten, like last time we were here, could not speak a word, now is running up and down the street with our 5-year-old yelling in English. And she said, yeah, in the last month, she goes to school every day. She speaks English pretty well now. But partnerships between Ball State and Muncie Community Schools for ESL programs. So all of our families go to ESL. Open Door, Meridian, and IU Health coming together to make sure they have interpreters and this kind of thing in the languages that they speak. The community has come out hugely in those big ways, but then even just the human ways, the engagement ways, the community connection ways. The Muncie Civic Theater gave everybody free tickets to see Newsies. Half of these families don't speak a word of English, and I was there with one of them, and this guy, this 35-year-old guy who's been through his face was like a beam of light the entire time, watching people dancing and singing on stage. I don't think it's ever anything he's ever seen. There was just so much joy, even though he didn't understand what the words were. Delaware County Football Club, the soccer league here, waiving fees in the winter and the spring, so all the kids who want to play soccer can. I mean, and what a great way to connect. And Dick's Sporting Goods giving probably over $2,000 worth of new soccer gear so they can have their gear, because they have nothing, they have no money, they have nothing. MIT's bus system, everybody got a free bus pass. YMCA gave everybody a 1-year annual membership. I mean, it's been amazing. And churches have been extraordinary. I've probably spoken to 25 different churches, and the amount of financial support, the amount of volunteers, the amount of ideas, the amount of connections, our communities of faith have been unbelievably supportive. I mean, I think our minds have been blown by the amount, and we would love for First Brethren to be a part of that, but it's just been extraordinary the way their community and our community have connected in such real ways. And it's difficult, because one of the big differences, and my background actually was political science and international relations in college, so I have studied refugee movement quite a bit. And most of the time, not all the time, usually by the time refugees are settled somewhere, there's like a full stop in their country, right? There was a war, it's over, they suffered great trauma, their country's been destroyed, they had to leave, but there's not a current threat to their loved ones. The thing that's different here, and the American news media, as we all know, no matter what side you're on, you don't like it. The memory is very short. A story's told, a week later it disappears and you wouldn't know. Which is not to say that the things in the news, I mean, the Ukraine crisis is a whole other thing, but no one's heard about Afghanistan since like October. And yet 90% plus of Afghanistan right now is food insecure. If you don't live in Kabul, there are no jobs. The Taliban every day, I mean, you think months later, wouldn't they be tired of trying to seek out people who supported America? They are not, sadly. A family I was talking to, I had an appointment with them on Tuesday, they said, my mom's house has been broken into by the Taliban 7 times just this year in 2022. Every time they're looking for me. Where is he? You don't say they're in America. That's a very bad choice to say. Just like, oh, we don't know. We haven't seen him. They come in. He said, my little nephew is 8 or 9. He said, just knock him down, throw my mom down, take stuff from our house. The brutality is kind of unending. And the story you told was this guy, he's 24, he's here on his own. He might be like the sweetest, just how people, you can describe him as gentle and sweet. And the funny thing is he's a boxer, actually. Just the most, he's always smiling. You talk to him about this trauma and he's always got a smile on his face. And this is the only time I've ever seen him. And he was in tears when I came in and I was thinking, what's going on? His name's Mujtaba. I've never seen him anything but glowing. And he starts showing me pictures of his dad, and I'm just like, well, thank you, this is great, And he's telling me about his dad. He was a regional governor. He was very proud to work with the Americans who came in, in this province to build infrastructure for people who have had nothing and had it all destroyed and all of this, highly educated, all of this. And so I'm like, oh, that's great. Thank you for showing me pictures of your dad. He's like, yeah, my dad wasn't hiding since the 15th. He's been in 6, 7 different houses, and the Taliban found him, and just 5, 6 days ago, they murdered him. And what do you do when you were coming to say, hey, by the way, we got 2 job interviews set up for you? And that's the reality every day, is there's so much success, but it's just always tinged with that. And that's why our work, it's not something that can be forgotten, and it's not something that we can just end after a week or a month. We do have a 6-month commitment on the kind of structural things. We've determined that 6 months is kind of that time period where when you look at all the stats that show, refugees and their entrepreneurial spirit and the hard work and all of this, we kind of saw that 6 months seems to be that time where you need to get your feet under you, you need to get a job, your kids in school, all of that. So we provide their rent, the housing deposit, furniture, essentials, food until they get on SNAP, all of these. But for us, that community connection, we provide them with welcome families, a family here, not that they don't live with them, but that helps them navigate, find connections, have dinner, go to Minnetrista, all of these things. Drivers to get them to medical appointments and these kinds of things. Although we do have about 7 of them who've gotten driver's licenses now. I mean, when I say hardworking, I can't overstate that. And so it's been tremendous and necessary, because one day, you're running around Minnetrista and laughing, and then the next day they call and say, hey, I just wanted to talk to you. My brother, we have 2 families who right now still, within the last 2 months, their brothers got kidnapped by the Taliban, held for ransom. They don't know where they are, and they still don't. And some of our families here who, the guy I mentioned who's 7 kids there, he said, well, now I'm up to supporting 24 people. I said, 24? You said you had 7 kids. He said, yeah, but my 2 brothers have lost their job now, and so now I have to support their families as well. The amazing thing, like I said, is to an employer, we have heard that they have never seen better employees. And not that this is why we do what we do, but it is kind of cool to give to them and see Muncie succeed through it too, and Delaware County succeed through it too. I have one GM of a certain factory who I joked with him. They've now hired 6, and the last time he texted me, I said, are you texting me every time you have an opening? And he actually responded, he said, yes, I actually am. And he just said, well, we hired 2, we took a chance, and they have never missed a day. They're the hardest workers we have. They're obviously not going to fail a drug test, and so he said, until you give us a bad one, we're just going to call you. We'll have a whole Afghan workforce. And so it's tremendous the way people have come together. And so, I'm here today not only to share the story, and I welcome any question, but I am here to say we would love for First Brethren Church to help. And there are 3 major ways to help. The first one I'll mention is, always the most awkward. Every family we support costs anywhere between $7,000 and $18,000 for the support that we give them, and it really is just the essential stuff to get them on their feet for 6 months. The community, the churches, they've come out in force. We've raised over 3/4 of our total. We have a great finance committee. We have a $400,000 goal. It is very delicately and intricately what we're spending it on, and we just crossed 300,000, and so we're just really hoping for that final push to get to, because we can't fail. That's the thing, right? It's like the families are here. We just can't fail. We have to support them the way we've promised. We've gotten donations from $10 to $15,000. So as a church or individually, I encourage you, if you feel so called, please do consider. I have a friend in Seattle who gives to us every month, and I said, I always laugh because you're in Seattle. He goes, yeah, but a lot of times, it's what Pastor Jim got. He said, a lot of times you give, and it's good, but you don't know what happens. He goes, I call you like once a month and say, tell me a different story, and you know these people, and I know that every dollar is going directly to helping these folks get self-sufficient and independent, and that's 100% our goal. So, everything's tax deductible and all of that, and I have cards. I know you have some folks on Zoom though, right? Watching on Zoom.
On Livestream.
So I am going to say what the website is, just in case I can't give you a card. It is www.awakeninc.org/MARRC, www.awakeninc.org/MARRC. Sorry, it's my only plug.
That's all right.
And that'll tell you how to give by credit card, check, and all of that. The second way is your volunteer hours. Some of you may have a little time, some of you may be retired and have a lot of time. I can't tell you how much we've had people who volunteered for one driving assignment and now say, I spend 10 hours a week on this and it's my favorite time. The biggest need is volunteer drivers. I can only ask you to imagine getting 112 people to medical appointments and job interviews and ESL classes and soccer and every other thing you can imagine. We have a lot of drivers, and it is the most pressed resource, that human resource. And so if you feel so compelled, that would be amazing. Even if you say, I could probably give 1 hour a week. You'll just get an email from our volunteer coordinator that says, here are the opportunities, and you can say no every time and say yes one time. And we do have other volunteer opportunities that pop up as well. And then the third one, and this is kind of the big open one, is where your passions are. We have had some of our most successful and community kind of engaging things come out of people coming up to us and saying, do you have a need for this? Some of you may know Nancy Carlson. I feel like I say that name and half of every congregation knows her. She was a volunteer driver for us and helped with food deliveries and stuff. And then one day just said, I'm a seamstress. I help with the Muncie Civic. Do you have a need for a sewing class? And we said, oh, well, sure, why not? Would you be willing to help organize? And Nancy's the extreme go-getter of go-getters and completely wonderful. She said, absolutely. Came back a week later, or 10 days later, said, when can we start? I've gotten enough seamstresses to volunteer. We're going to do one-on-one. I said, and this is that time we had 14 families. I said, it's 14. She's like, I have 13 volunteers, but I'll get one more. And now that class has 23 or 24 women in it, and I'll tell you, not only has it been great for just sewing and all of this, but it is the social event of the week every Tuesday. I hear stories from Nancy going, women just It went from 1 hour to 2 hours. She's like, now we hang out afterwards, all of this. Some of them, afterwards, every volunteer is like, oh, I got invited to this house for lunch, for tea, for everything else. The giving spirit is huge. And a week after Nancy came to us and said that, we had a gentleman who's a doctor at Open Door who just said, my wife and I, we don't know anything about Afghanistan, but we've worked with folks from Iran, and I know that sewing circles are huge. Do you have a need? We'd like to donate brand new sewing machines. And I'm like, hey, sometimes these things come together well. We actually just started this conversation. He said, oh, no problem. I'll send you a brand new one straight from Amazon. We'll get you a $100 Joanne gift card for each person. And again, this was when there was like 12. And I said, there's like 12, 13. He said, yep, absolutely. Just keep on letting me know. And again, he's now donated 27 of those, or 24 of those. And every time I feel a little more awkward because I know how much he's given. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, just keep calling. I'll let you know. But those are the types of things. So if you have experiences in your life, expertise, skills, things you're passionate about, let us know. It might not be something that's helpful right now, but it might be. Or if you're a part of another organization outside of this church where you're like, I'd love for you to come talk to the civic organization or give information. We're so happy to spread the word. So I'd like to just open it for questions and things. But thank you so much for giving the time today.
First, give Ari hand appreciation.
I really do. I want to appreciate you because, without being able to spread the word, we couldn't do it with 5 people or 10 people or 30 people. We couldn't do it with $1 or $10. We couldn't do it with one organization. I mean, it is so necessary for it to be the whole community.
He answered a lot of my questions when I talked to him because, we have concerns. We have thoughts about, who's vetting and what are these families like. And no Taliban want to leave Afghanistan right now. They're not eager to leave. They are after these families and people and those stories. I'm like, it's ripping me apart thinking about leaving my kids and my wife and my pregnant wife. And I'm like, and they're coming here and they have nothing.
And I can add one thing. I know in the news people said, oh, but what if 98% of them supported the U.S. troops, but 2% got through? I mean, I've read countless volumes of how they've been vetted, and I will tell you that I made a joke with IU Health, the vice president there, because he said, well, it'll take about a month to do security checks. I go, you do know they've been checked by DHS and, defense and state. And he's like, I know, but we have to do our own thing.
And you told me they don't have places where birth certificates, diplomas, transcripts, that's all been destroyed. Yeah, they don't have access to those things. And so when they come here, Ari's been able to help them to say, let's expedite this. We don't have those things. But we know someone that knows them.
That's what I was going to get at, is I can say 100%, literally with my own heart and mind and soul into it, that I've met 112 people, 33 families, a lot of these are kids, and 100% of these people I know exactly what they did for the U.S. military, in some cases for the State Department. So in Muncie, I can say with assuredness that all 33 of our families have been in direct support of either the U.S. Defense or U.S. State Department. And quite frankly, even for the years that they were, risked their lives. And some of our, if I could tell one more very quick story, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
A new volunteer, not new anymore, new last month, came to us. I'm friends with his brother. I had only met him once. I played Ultimate Frisbee with him once, but I knew he was a veteran. I didn't know he served in Afghanistan. And I knew we have some volunteers who are veterans, and we actually just had another one the other day come to us. But this guy, his name's Corey, and he just said, I want to volunteer. And he actually is a contractor, so he's just like, if you ever need me to paint the house, anything. And within a week, our volunteer coordinator got in touch and said, did you send me Corey's name? Like, who is this guy? He said yes to everything. Like, does he have a job? Like, what's he doing? Because he's probably done 10 or 12 hours just this week. And often, like at the last minute, there was one where we had no idea. I thought the homeowner was going to put up blinds on the windows before the family moved in. And we got there the day before to do this check, and there were no blinds. And I'm like, imagine coming from a place where you are actively terrorized, and then we're like, you have to have a house where there's no privacy? Sorry. Trust us, Americans are safe. So I said, okay, I'm running to Menards. I just measured everything. But we need someone to put up 13 blinds, like today. It's probably going to take you hours. Like, I don't want to do it. And he's like, yeah, I'll be over there. It's great. Can you leave me the key kind of thing? And so the next morning, he was finishing something up, and I was helping the family come in. And I just said, thank you. This has been amazing. And he just kind of opened up, and he's just kind of, I don't want to say gruff. He's just this very solemn guy. And he actually was getting emotional. He just said, so, I served for 18 months in Afghanistan, and we just believed so deeply in what we were doing. Like, we were going to help this country throw off the Taliban. Women and girls could get educated, get health care, have success, like these things. And so when the pullout happened, he said, I kid you not, I had friends who committed suicide. I had friends who went into serious depressive episodes because for us, it felt like everything that we had risked our lives, our mental health for, and now the Taliban's back. 20 years of nothing, like what happened? And he said, for me personally, I kid you not, he said, I'll say to you, I struggle with mental health concerns, these things. He said, every time I volunteer, it just brings me peace. He said, I've gone to psychiatry, I've been to so many things, and nothing brings me peace like volunteering for these folks, because these were the reasons I was risking my life in Afghanistan. And he said, I don't know where my driver was and my translator is now, but he said, like, if I could find them and they're not out, I would do anything to get them out. That's who kept me alive. And I was crying. I'm just trying to stand there going, oh, thank you. And like,
I just wish before we had the conversation of pulling out that we would have had the stories of these families, what was happening, the girls, the education, the jobs, what they were doing in their communities, because now we're hearing about it and it's like, the only reason it stopped is, I wish then we could have had the conversation to say, is this the best thing? Are we really helping the Afghanistan people by doing this? And obviously, it wasn't
sometimes
the best
there are
thing.
no right answers, too.
Yeah.
As I said,
I think there were right answers, but we won't get into that now.
It's very interesting. If you ever get into this and you want to meet someone, one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met in my life, and as I get to know this guy, he's both like the kindest and gentlest and humblest and most helpful guy, and one of the most brilliant human beings. So one of the families in Muncie, he was literally the director for the entire of Afghanistan, working with the U.S. government for counterintelligence interviewing. So this guy ran a network of hundreds of intelligence officials specifically capturing Taliban, ISIS, and this, and then interviewing them and figuring out how their minds work and this and that. And if you ever want the intricacies of that question, like where did it go wrong and this,
he's got,
whoa. I mean, I'm sitting there listening to him and he's like, and then in 2014, and I'm going like, I'm a lifelong learner. This is amazing to learn these deep things. And just another story. He's here with his wife. They have no kids yet. That's the other thing. This guy's 30. And he also is the one who owned 4 businesses. This guy's 30 years old, owned 4 businesses, and was the director of national intelligence interviewing for the whole country. He was able to get 2 of his brothers and his dad to India. He was able to get 2 of his brothers with his wife out with him. And sadly, 2 of his brothers and his mom are still in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, right now, like getting people out of Afghanistan, I mean, the Taliban is not a willing partner. It's not like refugees from France where you're like, oh, someone's wife is stuck there. Can we get a visa and you get them on the plane? I mean, I don't mean to make light of it, but it's just heartbreaking because that's one of the questions we always get is like, how do we get our kids?
And we don't have that answer.
Yeah, we don't have an answer.
Any questions from all of you?
Yeah, please, and anything's a good question.
Yeah, I get the impression from you, and enlighten me, that once they got here, our government just kind of washed their hands of them and said good luck to you, or what's
A little bit of each.
with our federal government?
I daily am so impressed with our federal government and so disappointed in our federal government. Because I do have to say, as much as I'm not usually like, yay, the government, I will compliment one thing. It's nothing that even our state government has ever seen. I mean, imagine, 75,000 people like, showing up. You don't have the systems for it. So I will say that I'm genuinely impressed and give credit where credit is due in creating systems to help these people. I will also say that I feel like the systems were created and then it was like, great, we did that, like you say, So some things have been great. Getting people in, getting people vetted, getting people their social security card, all of that stuff was done very well. Now we're kind of at the point where we're like, so what now? So the 2 things they do get, they all get Medicaid for 8 months, and they qualify for SNAP, obviously, because they don't have anything. The thing that's difficult now, especially in the American health system with insurance, is if you don't get insurance from your employer, some of you have maybe had situations where you are near bankruptcy because of medical bills. And unfortunately, it's tough to get them the types of jobs. Like IU Health was a great thing for 5 of our families to work with because they get great insurance. So insurance is a major issue. The bigger one is just this idea that some of it's little. I mean, here's a great example. So until they get work, they should qualify for TANF, for cash assistance. Obviously, once you get work, you don't get that. But once, at least for the first couple of months, I mean, they're coming here with literal nothing. And so we're paying their rent for those first 6 months. But imagine literally have nothing. Like you can't walk outside and go, I'd like to go buy a bottle of water because you don't have the money for it. And so they have to go to these impact classes. I'm like, they don't speak English. So that's actually going to make it harder for them to find a job, to sit in these classes where for 20 hours a week they're being told about interviewing and this and that because you're not getting a translator. But yet you won't give them the cash assistance for the 1 month until they get the job unless they go to these classes. So, and bureaucracy is bureaucracy. Working with the state government has been wonderful. There's still hoops to go through. We always can talk to a person at FSSA or at Social Security. Actually, they're federal, but they're good. But like calling DHS, please never in your life get yourself in a situation you have to call DHS or USCIS. You will spend hours on the phone and not be able to access one human being. And you'll be sitting there going, like, for instance, story, one guy who can't get a Social Security card because his I-94 immigration papers and his work authorization have a different birth date. They're both from DHS. How did they get sent their 2 most important documents from the same office with 2 different birth dates? So the Social Security office is like, we can't by law give him a Social Security card. And then I'm sitting there like banging my head against the wall after 5 hours on the phone. I can't get a human being, So it is a struggle in those ways.
Let me get specific.
Yeah.
If I may.
So I'm going this way because there's a light.
Our 2 senators,
Yes.
Mike Braun and Todd Young, is it Todd Young? What kind of job are they doing? Tell me that, because I know Young's up for re-election, and you put pressure on these people, and
So
just tell me specifically.
It's an interesting question. I actually met with Mike Braun's legislative assistant last week. Actually, they had mobile office hours. So I actually worked in Washington, D.C. for a year, and I understand that they're overwhelmed. So I want to say this in 2 ways. I don't want to badmouth anyone because I understand they're overwhelmed. And I understand that they probably get 100 or 1,000 requests for every issue every day. And I'm sure that they can't be like, oh, thanks for letting me know, we'll do it tomorrow. The thing about this, though, is that we only want one thing, and it's an easy thing. And I encourage you, if there is one reason you want to pick up a phone and call Senator Brown and Senator Young, it's an Afghan Adjustment Act. We did this after the Vietnam War, where we had to take these people over because of their direct support to the United States military. It's different. I don't mean to put a finer point on there, because of course we want to help refugees in Ukraine and everywhere else, but these are folks that literally supported to their own physical, financial, and every other danger the United States effort there. That's why they're refugees. They're not refugees just because, the Taliban's a threat to everyone there, but these folks are here because of what they did for the U.S. military. That's only been the case one other time in our history, and they passed the Southeast Asian Adjustment Act, which didn't give everybody citizenship. It just said you can directly apply for a green card. You don't have to, you still have to go through the application process and all of this, but you can apply directly for a green card rather than sitting here for years applying for asylum, going through the asylum process and all of this. It is the singular only thing that we are asking for and that everyone's asking for. Please, Senate, Congress, pass an Afghan Adjustment Act. So there's people, by the way, who are already here. It's not like bring over these new people. They're here already. So if they were a threat, they're going to be a threat. And if they're not a threat, they're not a threat. They live in America. So why are we making them go through a 3 to 5 year asylum process just so they could be granted asylum, which we know they're going to be granted because, again, is the government going to send them back to Afghanistan for their sure death? No. They're going to be granted it, but so they have to go through this process, this very time-consuming, stressful, anxiety-ridden process for 3 to 5 years, and then they can apply for a green card. And so the only thing we're asking is for that. And when I said to Senator Braun's legislative aide, I said, I know, having followed Senator Braun, that one of his biggest concerns is paying for something. I said, you'll never be given a freebie that actually gets you money, because right now our immigration court system is so overwhelmed and bleeding money because of the overwhelmedness that this would eliminate that backlog. So this is something that is a no-brainer for the people, of course, our hearts are into it, but also literally costs nothing and frees the U.S. court system up to the tune of millions, not even millions, tens and possibly even hundreds of millions, but I don't know, but definitely tens and tens of millions of dollars a year, because it skips the asylum process where they can just process those things. So if you wanted to call Senator Braun and Senator Young and say, please, be the forefront, be the proud sponsor, write the act. It could be passed tomorrow, and I mean, it's the thing they're most anxious about. What if I get sent back? And I'll tell you, I know they're not. I mean, the U.S. government's not going to send them back, of course, but like, imagine if it were you. You'd say, yeah, Ari, thanks so much. I mean, I trust you. I give you my social security card to go to the FSSA office, you know? But like, it's my life and my family's lives. So like, telling me we're not going to be sent back is nice, but
Right.
not enough.
When it's always up in the air,
Yeah.
literally up in the air based on those decisions.
Yeah,
And I
daily
think,
anxiety.
I think if you call, tell them, you know, we live in Muncie. We have 33 families here, and we want to see them continue to thrive and to know that they're safe here and to be a part of our community.
And I promise you, I mean, I can't promise you, but I think deeply that if you get involved on any level, and I know everyone feels different. Some people, I have a friend who is a very generous giver, and he just says, you know, my own personality and stuff, like I'm a little uncomfortable connecting in a human way, and that's okay. And I know people who say, I don't have anything to give financially, but I love connecting in a human way, or I can do both, or you know, whatever way you connect. If you connect in some volunteer way, almost to an individual, I have heard people just say, one woman I was just talking to, I said, wow, you become one of our best volunteers. And we had this conversation. She said, well, I have to go to one of the houses. I said, oh, you're driving them somewhere? She goes, no. We just have driven this one family so many times that now I go and have English conversation with the wife. You know, and it's one of our favorite things all week. We go once a week. I go over, she makes me lunch, gets me tea, tries to convince me to stay all day for dinner and everything else. And we just chat for an hour or 2 hours, and her English improves, and she goes, it's my favorite thing I do in the week. So it's really beautiful. Yeah.
You mentioned about they didn't know what was coming like 3 or 4 days before, but I'm basing it on what I've seen in the past in the media reports, but they say there was a gradual takeover of the Taliban in the country. So is that true?
Yeah, so I only know this stuff from the one guy, from Hasyal, who was the director of the intelligence, because the rest of them are like, wait, I mean, if you ever want to hear the Taliban badmouth, bring them up to one of these families. I mean, I've heard words that I'm just like, whoa, hey, guys.
That's not English I taught you.
Yeah, no. But I mean, I have one guy who I have to almost stop him, because every time I ask him about something in his life, he starts it, and I know, no joke, with a 7 to 10 minute preface about the Taliban. These people are not human. They are not Muslim. They would be kicked out of anything. They do not believe in God. They are a blasphemy on Islam. They're a blasphemy on Afghanistan. They're a blasphemy on the world. They don't believe in human life, animal life. You wouldn't treat an insect the way they treat people. And then they'll go on, they're dirty. They don't know how to, he told me this story just to throw it in. He's like, we were trying to get to the airport, and these ignorant this and that, they're there to direct traffic. They've never even seen a stoplight. How can they direct traffic? And I'm like, I don't even know what this, just anything they can say. You know? You're like, okay, you've told me all that, I get it, you know. But what he said is that it was gradual but not gradual, that the people kind of in the know, it was gradual, but it was very clear that it was happening, you know. So yeah, from the outskirts to into Kabul, maybe it was like 3 weeks, 6 weeks or something. But he said, you know, you keep analyzing, and unfortunately, this is a delicate topic for me to get into, so I'm sorry, but I want to honestly and openly answer your question. He said, we think we could have stopped a lot of it or postponed it, but at that point the U.S. had announced their withdrawal, and we got very clear orders not to engage. Just where, you know, U.S. military will be pulling back, and, you know, kind of this is done. And so he said there were times where we were saying, no, please, like, there's an opportunity in this town right here. And we were just told, you know, we're executing the pullout, so we're not directly engaging.
If they preferred, would they rather go back to their homeland if something happened with that situation?
I mean, it's impossible now. I mean, they're aware of that. So, I mean, I agree with Pastor Jim said. Not one, I mean, I don't mean to say not one of them wants to be in America. They actually love America. I mean, these are people who are like, it takes how many years to become a citizen? But like, we're here. This is our country now. We want to be citizens. We could be Americans, you know? And we're like, it's like 5 years or so after you get your, you know? That one's they're confused about. They're like, but in Canada, you get your green card in like 8 months, and then you can be a citizen. And we're like, yeah, America's immigration process is a thing. So to an individual, I mean, who wants to leave their country, right? I mean, no, of course not. Every single one of them is like, no, my family, like, we had a life. I mean, and some of them had nothing. I mean, some of these people were like, you know, you go home and you watch TV, and you play with your kids and you go to work. I mean, these people are like, no, upper middle class lifestyle. Why would I want to leave that? I love my country. We had our culture, you know. No one wanted to leave, not one, not even one person. But at this point, the conversation about would you go back is fraught. One, I mean, it's impossible because the Taliban is in control, and I mean, I don't know what the game there is, but I think also it's hard to say. There's a level of trauma from which I think you can't just reset. You can heal, you can show some level of normalcy, but I mean, I don't know, you go back and everything's gone. You go back and, I mean, for instance, we have three young women in their 20s who are here by themselves. Actually, one, sometimes, yeah, it's another heartbreaking situation. She and her husband, they have a 2-year-old. They got to the airport together. They were separated in the crowd. When she got through with her 2-year-old, she didn't know if her husband got through. They each had the papers. It was her husband's papers. He was the one who supported the military. She actually worked for an NGO. So they both had the papers, just in case they got separated, and they did. And she said it was this, like, you don't know what to do. Like, so do I go find him? And they're going, you have to get on the plane. Get on the plane now, or you're not leaving. What are you going to do? And she goes, we got on the plane. They said, no, you know, you're going to go to a base in Dubai and, you know, be in a camp there and be vetted and all of this. We'll find him, you know. And then find out a week later, he was not able to get on the plane. So now she's here. She's like 27. She has a 2-year-old. Imagine being in that position in a new country where you don't know the culture. She actually speaks great English, but, you know, don't know the culture, don't know anything, have no support, and her husband is there. And so she told me about, so, you know, in any area there's a different ethnicity. So they're Hazara, it's a minority ethnicity. And she said, well, the Taliban targets everybody. The Taliban are Pashtuns, but they target all the Pashtuns as well. But she said they specifically target Hazara. So she's like, I have heard that the school I went to as a child has been blown up. The daycare that my son went to has been blown up. Our Hazara mosque has been blown up. So like if you're that person, even if one day everything was swept away, it's like, what are you going back to at that point? So.
And then what happened to their financial? They said everything went away. Was the current
liquidated bank accounts.
Took it or what?
Yep. He said the U.S. government froze all accounts in Afghanistan that they could control for a minute, basically to try to sort things out. And then the moment that was released, he said the Taliban took everything. And I don't know if they took like your bank account with $8 in it, but I know like for Hasial, for instance, I know he said, you know, the most heartbreaking day was every day up until like leaving. And then he said, but the most heartbreaking day in America was when I was starting to, and when I say genius level, I mean, this guy, when he got his driver's license first, he's been to 7 or 8 different states doing like market research and market analysis and all of this on every business he's looking at. I mean, he is deeply engaged in these things. And he just said, and then I opened my bank account to say like, okay, well, I need to try to, you know, put seed money into this. And he said, every bank account, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Everything taken. And even trying to get money back to families, even the ongoing situation they've tried. Apparently right now, the Taliban is monitoring anything over $250. So even sending money back, if you support 24 people, you can send $250 once every few weeks and have it not be taken. So that's why I say, like, it's not in the news, but it's this incredible ongoing situation. You know. But I do encourage you, you know, I mean, I'm sure you have walked by these folks. Just the absolute, I mean, the culture is very humble and giving. So if you meet them, you will be invited in for tea. They will give you everything in their house. You'll be like, those are dates that you had to go to Indianapolis on a bus to get from this halal market because they're direct from like Jordan. And they probably cost like a little package for $15. They will let you eat the whole package. They will give you anything. And they're just the sweetest people, really, to an individual. I saw a hand way back there, so yeah.
Not a question, just a comment. I wanted to say thanks for coming. I do remember seeing on Facebook requests for the essentials when this was first starting, and I just hadn't heard anything else, so I thank you for coming and giving us an update.
For sure. Yeah, and essential is actually a good point that you bring up. So the one thing that we don't want donations of, with all due respect, we got flooded with so much like clothing and stuff We actually had to fully stop. We made a great partnership with the Muncie Mission because they have paid staff that do this. But if you can imagine like trying to have volunteers to drive people and you're just every day bags and bags of clothing, like it just, we didn't have the infrastructure. The one objects that we are still taking, excuse me. I know this is kind of a big one, but we got 3. If anybody is looking to donate a car, it's the one thing we really are trying to support driver's ed. Because, I mean, especially for women, I mean, imagine being a woman, they tend to speak much less English than the men do, and you're sitting there at home all day. And so you have ESL Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 2 hours a day, and you have sewing on Tuesday for 2 hours a day, and the rest of the time, imagine sitting at home all day, every day. You know, so we're really trying to help with driver's ed, but then you have to get a car, which right now, I mean, if any of you have tried to buy a car recently, even the, you know, you're like, you might, a used 1997 Ford Taurus is $5,000. I mean, the car market is just out of this world right now. So we have gotten 3 people who said, you know, I was going to probably sell it for a couple thousand, but, you know, get a tax write-off, whatever. And it's been, I mean, when you think about something that, you know, for us is so small, I say to my wife sometimes that this has pushed me so far. Not that we're going to like sell our house and live under a bridge and give it all away. You know, everything's a balance, right? But just every day, how we have, not every day, but every week, truly every week when we do our budget, we have conversations about like, can we push a little bit more this way, a little bit? Because, you know, on my worst day, I'm in a comfortable house. I can walk around my neighborhood safely and cry myself to sleep on a comfortable pillow if I need to, you know? And so we have a lot and we can definitely give. So if you have a car that you're like, oh, it's an old car, we can get rid of it, let us know. You will change a family's life more than you can imagine. We just transferred 2 titles this week because we had one, and then all of a sudden in the same week, 2 people came, and these families, I mean, to see people just like, unbelievable.
Thank you very much.
And I'll stay late if you have questions. I know sometimes it's like, I have this question, but I don't want to raise my hand in the middle of everybody. It's okay. I'm happy to answer it. But thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Better take this.
Oh, my phone.
And as you can see, I mean, those stories, they are real. I appreciate the fact that Ari, again, he's speaking out of this experience. He's not, it's direct, and we know who is in contact, and so what is given goes for that purpose. Your volunteer hours are just, you know, that's what they're asking for, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to look at and to be a part of that. And now you're still anticipating a few more families here in the future?
Yeah, it's slowed down for a couple reasons. Right now, any more families, the focus is family reunification. So as you might have seen in the news, like Camp Atterbury in Indiana, they're all closed. I mean, all the camps now have no more people. So there might be more eventually, but from Afghanistan, but obviously that's a closed subject right now. But we have, like, for instance, one family. I mean, imagine having nothing and you can't even be near your family, even if they've gotten out. So we had one family who was here, and we found out that the brother-in-law's family was in Wisconsin, so we were able to get them down.
Nice.
2 other units from North Carolina, so we like have 4 sections of this family now in Muncie. So we're focusing on that.
Okay.
If we can, but it is far less active in regards to bringing new people in, just for that reason.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you all listening and knowing how it hits you. And so I ask that you prayerfully consider how you can be a part of this and engaged in this, whether it's volunteer hours or financially or at whatever level. And they are, like you said, they are, put your name on a volunteer list and just at least they'll know they can ask and you can say yes to that hour or 2 or however long you feel you can give throughout the week. And if I'm not mistaken, I think every experience of every volunteer has been positive. They have been blessed by the experience, not someone saying I can never do this again or they were rude. In fact, I don't think rude doesn't seem to be in their makeup at all. They are very appreciative. Yeah, supportive, yeah. Easy, we can do that, yeah. Well, let's worship with the songs. Cleanse Me is not the right song. You got that? Did you get that notice? Good. I was afraid you didn't.
Pastor, maybe you or Jerry or somebody send out a broadcast message with all of his information, his contact information, the website.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll make that available for people. And I've got plenty of cards here as well where that information is there. And so if you can think of someone else, don't stop here. Think of your social networks and places that you can give this information, and please do that. And let's come together. It is truly a good thing where we can all come together. And I think, I know Elizabeth knows BB, and we talked about that some, and has seen her there where she had worked at American Health Network, and said she is the most genuine, sincere, wonderful person. But she knows people too, and she has gotten Muncie hopping at several levels because of who she is, and the people trust her and know her, and so we can be thankful for that. So let's stand together, and this is Spirit of the living God, fall fresh on me. Let it, and it'll say, mold me, melt me, use me, and let's make that our prayer this morning as we respond, and let's do that together. Fathers, we make that our prayer this morning. I am thankful for Ari and those who have come together to be ministers, to be those who see a need and respond to it. And Father, we need to have that bigger picture, and to take in all of they're not nuances, Lord, they're realities for folks who are being displaced, lives that are being threatened, and some here knowing that families are not safe and family members are not safe, and I can't even imagine. But Father, they are here, and it's real, and I pray, Lord, then that we would be a very real response to those needs. So lead us and guide us in those ways. Continue to strengthen those who are already taking that on and are doing the work, and Lord, provide. I pray that you would multiply the resources for that need, and I just am very thankful. And Lord, I pray that you would go before them and indeed protect them and be a shield around them, and for those families that are navigating all of these days, Father, just, may they have peace. and rest and comfort, and where we can be an answer to that prayer. Equip us and lead us and guide us. And we're going to give you all the praise, all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's continue to worship. Great is thy faithfulness, and then the Spirit's song.
So
know that as we navigate our days, that you ask us to trust you as you equip us to take one moment at a time, to be attentive, to be aware of those around us, and Lord, then to allow you to use us. So shape us for those moments. Father, we're also mindful of those that are not feeling well this morning. Some are working with doctors and nurses and caregivers. We appreciate their knowledge. We appreciate all that they do for us. And Father, we pray that you would continue to lead and guide, that you would continue to direct, and that you would give peace and rest to those who are facing those challenges each day. We lift them up to you right now, Father, and we just give you thanks. We do pray for families that are grieving, those that are this day in the Ukraine, and I'm sure there are many stories coming out of places like Afghanistan and others, Lord, where families are being ripped apart. And again, Father, we can't imagine. But we know that as they go through this, that we're asking that you would intervene on their behalf, that you would protect those who are in harm's way, that you would work with those who have the opportunity through leadership to make changes, Lord, that you would give wisdom, help them to see clearly. And maybe that takes one of your proverbial and significant 2x4s, but that's what we would ask for, that there would be that kind of awakening. And Father, teach us to trust you, to know that you are working around us, that you invite us to be a part of that work, and that we can know that you will equip us. And for that we give thanks, we give you praise, and we lift up every single family that is here in Muncie that's been impacted by what has happened in Afghanistan, and we just pray that you would continue to open the right doors, that you would continue to protect them and their families that cannot be here, and that you would meet their needs, and that you would use us, Father, to be a part of that. We give you all the praise, all the thanks. I again thank you for Ari and his heart for them, and I pray that you would just continue to give them wisdom and discernment and all that they need to continue to lead. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Ari, I'll